So we got the diff back from the diff shop. They've tested it out, it's working. I've refilled it with AMSOIL, synthetic gear oil. And I've just attached the 2 lines to the top because it's going to be hard to reach the top once I get it up. You got a 5mm air line and then a 4mm oil return line. This is a push-in. This is a clamp. The hose slides over the nipple and you just tighten it down. And I'm just going to use a jack to help lift it up, and basically opposite of removing it. Alright, so I finally have my locker hooked up, and I've been putting this off because I thought this would be a bigger job than it was. It actually wasn't too bad to get the airlines into the truck. I had it in there for a while, and I've had the diff in and out a couple times due to different issues, so it wasn't hooked up. But I'm just going to show you how I routed the airlines before I go into the issues that I've had. Okay, so from the diff, I've come down into the notch there, and that is right behind the oil pan. On the side of the transmission there's a notch, and then we've come across and followed the wires on the side of the transmission pan. I've gone under this cross member to stay away from the exhaust. As you can see, the exhaust pipe runs right here. I want to stay away from that heat, and we had to cross the exhaust somewhere, and that was the best spot that I could keep it away from the exhaust and still keep it secure. And then we've ran it through the frame here, followed this wiring harness, and perfectly placed. There's a hole in the floor already that was sealed up. I just poked a hole through the seal and ran it up through. One thing to note, there's a bolt here, so I'll show you that bolt from up top. Okay, so this is where we mounted our air compressor under the seat, and that's where that bolt is right there, and that's where that seal was right there. I put some silicone on it to seal it up, and then connected my 2 wires here. This air locker has an air line and an oil kickback line, so when you unlock it, it shoots any oil back that may have come up. And I've got my onboard air, hook up an air hose as well, and next thing we'll be testing this out. Okay, after months of building and rebuilding and waiting, we have this locker put together and we're going to test it out. I've got both wheels jacked up off the ground, and right now when I spin one, the other does not spin. So when I go and lock it, both wheels should turn. So to make this run, our ignition has to be on. These lights are on all the time the way I wired it. You can wire it so they're just on at night. We'll kick the compressor on. You should hear it run for a few seconds to charge the airline. And once it's at pressure, it'll shut off and I don't hear leaks, which is good. And then we're going to hit the lock button, and the solenoid valve on the compressor will open. And I didn't hear anything, but we'll assume that it did because it worked before. Without the airline on, it would you just hear it spit air out. Okay, the air compressor just turned on again. So it's keeping that airline pressurized, and we'll the wheels to spin. And it feels like we're locked. Let's check it. It feels like both wheels are turning. I can't see the other side from here. You can see it on the camera. So I confirmed it. We are locked. And then I'll go and flip the locker switch to release the solenoid. I heard this kick on once again, so maybe there is a small air leak, or maybe that's normal. Let's disengage. And I didn't hear it, but this should have just switched. We'll check if we're unlocked. Yep, feels like we're unlocked now. Alright, there you have it. There's the working tray 4x4 air locker. Some issues that we had. It was first shipped with the wrong side gears, so the axle shafts would not go in properly and they would not lock. We did contact TRE. They sent us new side gears. We had to pull the whole diff apart again and basically rebuild it, remove the side gears from the carrier, put new side gears in, reinstall the whole carrier in the diff, and yeah, we did that. Reinstalled it in the truck. The axle shafts weren't locking in properly, so they were coming out, and we were leaking gear oil. And I was driving on pavement in the winter, which was kind of my fault, but also could be because the axle shafts weren't locking in properly, so the splines weren't in all the way. I did break the end of one of the axle shafts, so partly my fault, partly I think the part of the carrier because the axle shafts weren't locking in. So I had to pull it out of the truck, take it to the diff shop. They pulled it all apart again, put a new axle shaft in, found that the axle shafts were actually too long for this carrier, and so they had to machine the ends of the axle shafts so that they would insert far enough to lock in properly. So those are the issues I had. The diff shop didn't really think it was that high of a quality of product either, so take that for what it's worth, and definitely not do it yourself install or job. Take it to a driveline shop, and yeah, you can try it if you want. The price isn't bad. There's not many other options. There's the ARB air locker. There's also the TRE e-locker. But yeah, TRE did give me a pretty good deal on it, so it wasn't as bad as if buying it off the shelf. So there's also that. And thank you for checking out this video, and check out some of my other ones.